Welcome to another episode here at Blue Duck Fantasy Football. We are doing a mock draft today. It is a one quarterback mock draft. With me, as always, is Matt. Matt, how you doing today? Nice to see you change your shirt for once.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got two shirts now. So that's good. Yeah.
Moving on up.
Having a good day. How about you?
So far, so good. Looking forward to this mock draft. We did a Superflex draft. Make sure you check that out. Link in the description. And now we're doing a one quarterback rookie draft. And let's just kick it off. Mm-hmm. So, Matt, you got pick 4. I got pick 8. We're going to be letting the computer pick their players, and we're going to be commenting on the picks. We do see this draft as being a 7-player draft. We have the 3 wide receivers, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, and DeVonta Smith. The 3 running backs, Najee Harris, Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne, and the 1 tight end, Kyle Pitts. None of the quarterbacks should be going in the top 7 picks. If you want to go Trevor Lawrence at 8, I don't mind that. That's where I have him. He's pretty much a sure thing. So with the other quarterbacks, you get risks. Those are more along the lines of late first, early second round picks. And then we get into the second tier of running backs. Of course, we went over all these positions in our videos. The link will be in the description for those as well, as we went over every rookie position there is. Matt, let's kick this off. And we're assuming Najee Harris would be the first pick. He seems to be the consensus first pick.
Yes.
And he is. One thing to say about Najee Harris here, looking at the stats, the Pittsburgh Steelers had a league low in running back targets in percentage of pass attempts. Now, they did lead the league in pass attempts, so it's still 81 targets. But they do have 3 wide receivers to feed, a new tight end, an old tight end, and a 4th wide receiver in James Washington, as well as some other pass-catching running backs. So if you're playing in a PPR league and you're thinking, yeah, Najee Harris is a great pass catcher, you're right. But are the targets going to be there? As this team, since Le'Veon Bell has left, has been at under 18% running back target shares, whereas the average in the league is much higher than that.
Quite the impressive stat line there.
Thank you, sir. Jamar Chase, second off the board. That seems to be basically the way it's going. For those of you that are worried about Jamar Chase and the targets he's going to get in 2021, just going to remind you that in 2020, all 3 Bengals wide receivers, A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins, all had over 100 targets. Now, none of them had over 110 targets, but that was also with Burrow only playing 10 games. Had Burrow played all 16 games, they would all have been in line for over 120 targets.
I was going to say, what about Joe Mixon not being available half the year?
Joe Mixon not being available half the year, but at the same time, Gio Bernard was, and he's a pass-catching back, so I don't believe that the target share would have been much different had Joe Mixon been there or Gio Bernard. They used both backs in the pass-catching role, so I don't think that was a big change. I do get running more snaps, possibly could have had an effect. But at the same time, we do think Chase is the best of these 3 wide receivers on this team and will probably lead the team in target shares. Matt, question for you. How many wide receivers who got at least 120 targets in 2020 didn't have 1,000 yards? And can you name them? You can count it on one hand. There's your hint.
Okay, let's say 4.
That is correct. Now, can you name them? 2 are on the same team. A team that may or may not have had the most passing attempts in the league, if you remember from one stat ago.
Juju and Claypool?
No, Deontay and Juju. Yeah, the other 2, Keenan Allen and Cooper Kupp. And I think we're pretty confident saying Jamar Chase is not like any of those players and will have a much higher reception average than those guys. So you can basically pencil him in for a 1,000-yard season. And I was looking up rookie wide receivers who've had 1,000-yard seasons. Of course, we've been spoiled the last 2 years with A.J. Brown and Justin Jefferson. But the list is very thin. There were 25 in the history of the NFL. Going back, in 2014, there was Beckham and Evans. 2015, I believe, had Cooper. Don't knock me on the years. I know Kelvin Benjamin actually had one as well. So that was a good wide receiver year, that 2014 class. But it is not something that happens every year. So being able to pencil in a rookie wide receiver for 1,000 yards is pretty nice. So don't be afraid of the landing spot. On to pick 3. Travis Etienne. Again, this is going basically according to board. Some people don't like Etienne. They don't like the landing spot. I, of course, have Javonte Williams as my number 1 running back. Matt, you have Najee Harris. You have Etienne and Javonte very close together.
Yes.
And our rankings are available on BlueDuckFantasy.com. We have our top 50 rankings, and we also have Superflex rankings. So check those out. Pick 4, Matt. You're on the clock.
Yeah, I like ETN. Not sold that he's going to get all the load year one with James Robinson there. Maybe long term he may end up being better, but definitely in the short term, Javonte Williams is the guy here for me.
Especially next year, for for that's Javonte Williams' backfield. So if you're willing to punt more on year one, I think ETN probably has a bigger role in year one, but Javonte Williams' role come year 2 is going to be for sure bigger. Not saying ETN's couldn't, but he's a sure play.
I am having problems selecting for some reason.
Who would you like me to select for you?
Just bear with me for 1 second. Javonte Williams, but I don't have that option for some reason.
Javonte Williams has been selected for Matt. Next up, Kyle Pitts, my favorite player and the guy that I would take at 1 overall. I've talked about it in previous videos. The fact that he has a tight end designation and the fact that he plays basically wide receiver is just like having a wide receiver in your tight end spot. But moving on to the next pick. Matt, what do you think the odds are that I get one of the top 7 players? 0? You think it's 0?
No, I don't think it's 0. I think one of Smith or Waddle could fall there. I think somebody could take Trevor Lawrence or Sermon or Michael Carter.
Fingers crossed.
Look at the running backs. They get, we've talked about it lots, that the running backs get pretty thin pretty quickly.
Not looking good so far. My number 1 wide receiver, DeVonta Smith, goes off the board. A lot of people worried with Jalen Hurts and how good of a passer he is. Granted, his 55% average wasn't great, but he did average passing over 37 times per game. And we're losing Ertz's 80 targets and also a 40 combined from Alshon and DJ. So right there's 110 open targets for him to get. So we love the landing spot. There's not much competition for targets there, and he should lead the team.
Losing Ertz.
Pardon me?
Bold prediction that you're losing Ertz.
I would assume they're losing Ertz, or at least he's not going to get that many targets. But I'll stick with their losing Ertz. The thing about him is his, unlike Chase, who could be basically guaranteed about 120, Smith could be 140 or he could be 100 or below 100, right? Depending on what happens. So the floor much lower, the ceiling much higher. Play the gamble. I like it. Let's see if I can get Jalen Waddle or if the computer is going to take him here. And there goes Michael Carter. So Michael Carter goes. We just picked him in the rookie draft that we're doing in a 3-year contract league with the 1.11 when we were unable to trade out as our team just isn't ready to compete this year. We were looking for a future first. But this makes my pick very easy. It's Jalen Waddle. This is a PPR league, so Michael Carter does have that added value, same as the league that we just drafted him in. So Jalen Waddle is the pick. And now we're done with the first tier of players, the 3 wide receivers, the 3 running backs, and the tight end, as well as an extra running back. So now if you need a running back, there's basically 2 options. There's Trey Sermon or there is Kenneth Gainwell, who I have a nice stat on when he comes up. But if you do need wide receivers, there is a lot of depth at wide receiver here. So you could trade back and get added value, because if you take a Bateman or a Marshall or a Moore or one of the other 2 guys, Kadarius Toney and the other Moore, you can basically move back about 5 spots and still have your pick. So if someone's really hankering to get their guy at 1.09, you could trade back to 2.01 and still be happy with the wide receiver that you get there while picking up possibly another second and getting yourself even more value. So let's see what happens here. First quarterback goes. That could be something that somebody was moving up for as well. And if you don't need a quarterback, perfect time to sell that pick and let them take it.
Yeah, this is even at 2.4 where I am, I'm confident I'll get a wide receiver I really like there. So just a ton of wide receiver depth in this year's draft. You said the running backs are super thin, but wide receivers, lots.
There goes Bateman, a man who's moved down my rankings considerably. Actually, not considerably, just 2 spots, but he's now behind Marshall. That's Terrace Marshall. And reason for that is that the last couple years with Lamar under center, they've had 221 wide receiver targets in 2020 and 182 wide receiver targets in 2019. And the reason that it increased that much is because the tight end targets dropped from 180 in 2019 to 109. Actually, the Ravens threw 50 less times in 2020. And of those 221 targets, Hollywood Brown had 100 targets, which leaves about 120 for the rest of the wide receivers. And Willie, Devin Duvernay, and Miles Boykins are all still there. They had over 100 combined. So I don't see how this team with Lamar Jackson at quarterback can, with Hollywood Brown there, can actually support Bateman. The best thing that could happen for Bateman is a career-threatening injury to Lamar Jackson because he just doesn't throw enough. Like, his numbers haven't gone up. And is he going to take a leap? I don't think so, because his legs are still so valuable that there's no reason for him not to run. This is a run-first team. You're talking about 250 targets and one wide receiver standing out with Hollywood Brown already established in a 100-target role. I just don't think it's logical that Bateman, even though he's a fantastic talent, can be that difference maker and can get those targets. I could be wrong. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, you also have to think about Mark Andrews is also there to swallow up a lot of targets as well.
Yeah, 109 targets to the tight end, which is pretty high. They had 180 in 2019, which was ridiculous.
Yeah. But Bateman as a player, really liked him, but the landing spot isn't the best. We're a little bit hesitant on pass catchers out of Baltimore. Like you said with Lamar, I wouldn't go as far as hoping for a career-ending.
I'm not saying I'm hoping for it. I'm just saying the best case for there to be a quarterback who will throw more would be for that to happen.
But then who's going to throw if Lamar's out?
Somebody who runs a lot less and is forced to throw a lot more.
Trace McSorley.
That's it'd have to be someone else. Again, I said career-threatening, not just like missing half a season. So, again, not hoping for it. Love watching Lamar play. Love Lamar Jackson as a player. We have him on our team, so we don't want to lose him. But that's why I've moved Bateman down my rankings, because I don't see in the foreseeable future anything other than a career-threatening injury to Lamar Jackson making him the guy. Sure, in a couple years, maybe they don't exercise the option on Hollywood Brown, and then in year 3, Bateman has a role. Or maybe in 3 years, Lamar Jackson is a 450, 550 time passer, but I doubt it. They're never going to throw that much with him there. So it's just, and I don't see him
that you mentioned aren't very threatening either, like Willie Snead and Miles Boykin, etc. They're not going to get it.
No, definitely not. But at the same time, teams use more than 2 wide receivers. You're not going to see 125 targets for one, 125 targets for the other, 6 targets for every other wide receiver on the roster combined. Like, they get sprinkled in, so they take a good portion of it.
Also, they drafted Tylan Wallace too, right? So another. Yep.
All right, let's get to pick 11 here. There's Trey Sermon, a player that I like. He could be the guy in San Francisco, but could not be. We'll see what happens there. Second quarterback going off the board, and this is about where these quarterbacks are going to be going. Surprising to see Fields go before Trey Lance. I prefer Fields, but in most mocks and most drafts that I've done, I've seen Lance go first. Matt, who do you like more?
I like Fields better this year. I think long-term I still would prefer Lance, but it just kind of depends on what your situation is. Just Lance with the rushing upside, I just think there's a higher floor there for him. I really like Fields, so I like them both, but I would go Lance if I need a quarterback in like a year or 2 down the road versus if I need somebody this year, I'll go for Justin Fields.
And there goes Trey Lance. So they go back-to-back. Pick 2.02.
So you see how this is lining up here? Well, the quarterbacks are flying now, but like the wide receivers are falling. So there's going to be a lot of good wide receivers here in round 2.
And another quarterback going here. Now, this is a bit early for Zach Wilson, as you should be looking to grab those other wide receivers and Kenneth Gainwell at least ahead of Zach Wilson. This is a 1-quarterback league. I don't mind the first 3 guys going, but Zach Wilson could just be another quarterback, right? He could be a top 15 guy who never really makes your roster, and he's just backing up your star player for injury. Same thing with Mac Jones. But now that Mac Jones is the only quarterback left, a quarterback-needy team could be looking up for Mac Jones. So this is a great time to trade back and trade your 2.03 or your 2.04 so that somebody could come up and take Mac Jones, and so that you can get a later second and possibly a second next year, because there's still a lot of good wide receivers left, and you're still going to get one of them, even if you move back several spots. And Elijah Moore, one of our top 4 guy, is wide receivers, or basically our first wide receiver of the second tier goes. Really like him, especially in a PPR league. He's going to be catching a lot of balls.
Yeah.
From Zach Wilson.
Yeah, no, I really like Elijah Moore. I was hoping that he would be the one that falls to me here, but obviously he did not. So if you don't mind, I will take Terrace Marshall.
Terrace Marshall, wide receiver, Carolina, will go. How many targets do you think Curtis Samuel had last year?
Oh, I'll say 90.
97. Very good. He actually had more the year before.
Oh,
he had over 100 the year before, which is surprising.
Yeah.
So you would think that because Christian McCaffrey missed a lot of time, the reason why he got all those targets, especially with Robbie Anderson leading the team in targets, but actually the targets to running backs only dropped by about 40. They went from 154 to 114 targets in 2020. So Mike Davis had 71 of those. So they still use the running back a lot. And now they're transitioning from a quarterback who, not the biggest thrower of the football, could use his legs a bit, very conservative in Teddy Bridgewater, to a prototypical throw first, don't run rarely, Sam Darnold. So we're going to see an uptick in targets. The possibility of Terrace Marshall coming in and having 100 targets in his first year isn't out of the question. And I mean, he's only looking at a couple more years of DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson before he takes that next step. So unlike Bateman, who there's no real clear path to getting all these targets, you have Terrace Marshall, who could be looking at 100 targets in year 1 and then increasing come year 3, and he could outplay some of the guys. I've never been a big DJ Moore fan. Robbie Anderson, fine player, but Terrace Marshall could become the number 1 there in short order.
For sure. I don't want to just echo what you said, but yeah, it's definitely a clear path, and I see him as the wide receivers that are left, the one that's getting the most volume out of these guys here.
What I was trying to say is very good pick, man. Very good pick.
Thank you.
Next pick is Rondell Moore, a player who's had some injury history going to the Cardinals. So the wide open spot for the number 2 wide receiver there, if he can take it. Christian Kirk definitely hasn't. AJ Green doesn't have much left, if anything. And Andy Isabella hasn't really done much to take over that spot. So it is open for him to take it over. And that would be a nice spot with a decent amount of targets.
Mm-hmm.
Kenneth Gainwell, the final running back of the second tier, goes. Matt, do you know who the offensive coordinator is for the Eagles? Of course you don't. He was the offensive coordinator for the Chargers last year. And the Chargers had a total of 156 targets to the running back in 2020.
Well, I mean, and the head coach came over from Indianapolis too, right? So they enjoyed using Nyheim Hines there.
Exactly. So we're looking at a team in LA without Eckler for most of the season that still threw 156 times to the running back, coming to a team that had 97 targets to the running back, of which Sanders had 52. Could you see an 80 target season in year 1 for Kenneth Gainwell?
I don't think that high. I think maybe 60-ish would be more reasonable for him. Still pretty high, but I think just Miles Sanders take up most of them. I'm really surprised actually the Chargers stat there you just threw out, because I always attributed that more to Phillip Rivers than the system. But
I've talked about Herbert before. What they did with him last year was magic, and they don't get enough credit for that. I look forward to seeing what happens to Herbert this year. But last year they protected him. They had the quick targets to the running backs. They had the deep bombs. They kept teams guessing as to what they were going to do. So they hurt them with the blitz, but they had options. It was a really good offensive system. I did have a quiz for you here. I was going to ask you, do you know how many running backs had over 80 targets in 2020? Again, one hand.
I'm going to say over 80 targets.
Yeah.
Say 3.
2.
2.
Can you name them?
1 hour later.
Nyheim Hines at 79, so he's not part of the list.
Okay.
2 hours later.
No, that's a. You know what? I don't know who would have gotten these targets because McCaffrey was out, Barkley was dead. Cook, I doubt it.
Getting closer.
It's not Kamara.
Of course, it's Kamara.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had 100 and I don't have the stats. He had over 100, but he wasn't number one. You won't guess number one.
Wow. No, then let's not waste time.
It's J.D. McKissick.
Okay, that makes sense though.
Yeah, at over, I think he had 100 and I think it was like 117 to 100. I don't have the full stat in front of me, but
yeah,
he beat him by like 6. But J.D. McKissick, who actually finished in PPR as a top 20 back last year.
Yeah, Gibson was hurt a lot, or not a lot, but he was hurt some, and that really helped. And then,
so Gibson was 13th. We have top 20 in McKissick, and Nyheim Hines at 15. Although Nyheim Hines got some pretty big games in there too. But Miles Sanders has missed time. So going back to this Kenneth Gainwell thing, I know there's not a clear path to him starting, but there's a clear path to fantasy points.
This team also really likes the Philadelphia Eagles. It seems like
that they do. Eagles truther. Okay, looking at let the computer pick this one before my pick. And that is an interesting pick. And it's going to leave me with Kadarius Toney is going to be my pick here. I've seen the other tight end for the Steelers. Matt, you like to say his name, so I'll let you say it.
Pat Freiermuth.
I've seen him go around this spot here. And if you're looking for a tight end, again, in the future, there's not too many year one tight ends that have impact, with Kyle Pitts being that exception. But I'm going to go with the draft capital. I'm going to go with the last player in my second tier of wide receivers. I would have taken Gainwell if he was there. I would not have taken ASB if he was there, but I will take Kadarius Toney as he is the next player on my list.
Very good. I like that pick as well. Draft capital, they're going to find a way to use them.
A boomer bust pick for sure.
Mm-hmm.
This is a reach.
Yeah, I know Detroit doesn't have any wide receivers, but that is a little bit of a stretch.
We have 2 Detroit wide receivers going there and there. I think this is something to do with the sleeper ADP because he was the top player ahead of these other players.
I saw that too. That's really strange.
Yeah. So we're going to let the computer pick this one. And Mac Jones is going today, which makes sense. Nothing wrong with this pick. You need a quarterback. If you don't need a quarterback, you shouldn't be taking a Mac Jones, but if you're looking to fill your quarterback roster, you should have about 3 quarterbacks on your Dynasty League roster.
Yeah, if you don't need quarterbacks, you're not taking anybody outside of the top 3 in this draft.
Basically.
Yeah.
I mean, you could take somebody late if you're just looking to bolster your bench, as this is a Dynasty League, so you want to have 3 guys there. Get a high upside player in Kellen Mond, but you're not taking them in the second round. You're looking in the 4th round to take a player that you could possibly just add to your team. Because Kellen Mond does have some high-end value. If he does end up starting a few games, he could bring some points in for you. And in the 4th round, you're basically taking lottery picks anyway. So
true.
Wouldn't be looking at them until the 4th. So there goes the second tight end. Again, a fine pick. Nothing wrong with that. You're going to be waiting a couple years, but that's what you have to do with tight ends unless you're named Kyle Pitts. Nico Collins going here. So Amari Rogers still on the board, who's the top player of our 3rd tier of wide receivers. But Nico Collins has a great opportunity as there's not much competition there. And there goes Amari Rogers, who could slide in and be the number 2, regardless of the quarterback. Because of his talent, he doesn't need to have the most talented quarterback throwing to him, as we've talked about before. We're going to go through these picks a bit quicker. Just kind of, if we see anything that stands out, we'll talk about it. If not, we'll just keep going through it. Matt, your boy. The Alexander Matheson of Carolina. One injury, and he's got huge value. So if you are a McCaffrey owner, you need to get him in your draft.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's another fantasy tight end who went to Houston where there's not a lot of pass catchers. So a decent pick there as well. Nothing wrong with that. Matt, you're on the board. Who would you like me to pick for you?
You are going to disagree because I know you like the other one better, but I will take Dwayne Eskridge.
You will take 42-year-old Dwayne Eskridge from Retirement College, USA.
I like the age factor there is awesome. So lots of experience coming into the room.
Yes. Okay, so you take the speedster who's older over the speedster who's younger because of the quarterback situation, because of the short term. Basically, looking for more of a short term play here. Fine.
Well, yeah, I mean Russ versus Ryan Fitzpatrick. Come on.
Yeah, but Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't a long term solution there. I'm sure they'll be looking elsewhere. Ramondre Stevenson, again, part of that third tier of running backs with Hubbard. Yeah, check out our running back rookie preview video, link below. A bit of a surprising pick here. This isn't somebody who should be drafted until the 4th round, if drafted at all. I mean, I know the Dolphins do like the tight ends, and they do like to split around, but there are better tight ends on the roster that are going to be ahead of them, and just don't see this panning out long term.
Yeah, I mean, Gesicki's blocking the road there for years to come.
Yep. Kyle Trask, first quarterback. I'm always surprised when I see his name go off first. Like, do you think Brady's done after this year? Do you think he just jumps into the role? I mean,
think Brady's got at least 2 years left, probably.
Another 2 to 20 years left. Who knows? He doesn't show any signs of slowing down. So I just always surprising when I see him go as a first quarterback. When you have a guy with a clear path to playing and another guy who has a high upside if he does play.
Just clarify, that's not the first quarterback in the draft, obviously, but the first quarterback after the top 5.
Yeah, first of the third tier of quarterbacks to go, with Kellen Mond and Harris being the other one. So I just picked for myself. So I just automatically picked. So I didn't know I was on the clock. And it picked me Kylan Hill, which is not somebody I'm going to take. But who am I going to take is a very good question.
I think I know who you're going to take. And
I think I'm going to have to check my rankings. You can sort our rankings by mine or Matt's rankings as well. Gone. It looks like it's going to be the younger of the two speedsters.
So I win the prize. I predicted that.
With Tylan Wallace being here. And again, I talked about the Baltimore situation, not something I really like. So that will be the pick. And I will take my third wide receiver. And again, I'm taking best player available here. And I'm going to be looking to trade some of these players if I need a running back or not. I'm not going to force taking a running back like Kylan Hill, who, as much as I like the talent, is in a terrible position behind a high-paid running back and another young running back who showed last year could be counted on to be like a 2-down back, if not more.
And also, a second-round pick, right? So they use draft capital, and A.J. Dillon knows.
Yeah, and looking at my draft capital, I got first round, and I'm not sure what round that Brown was taken in, but I think it was inside the 4th.
I think 3rd, yeah.
And there goes Kylan Hill.
No surprise, considering they just tried to take him for you.
Yep. Okay.
No, don't like it.
There's Tylan Wallace.
Okay, that's okay there, I think. I like Hawkins for that landing spot, so yeah, that's a decent flyer there.
Javien Hawkins' stock has been rising ever since they put him there. Yeah. I mean, we talked about it before. A lot of people are using a lot of their budget on him. He's an undersized back. People think he's going to get volume, so they're taking a shot on him. I know you like him. I'm not the biggest fan, but 3rd is a bit early when there are still players like a Josh Palmer still left.
Okay, but if this team needs a running back, that Hawkins isn't falling to 4.12 either.
Yeah, good point. So, I mean, it just depends on what you really need there, I guess. Yeah. Okay. I mean, there are better players to pick than that one. We'll both agree if you want to pick them later in the 4th, I guess. But
yeah, this is not a tight end premium, so this is a little strange here.
And there goes Davis Mills right before your pick. So Kellen Mond's still on the board. Who are you looking at with your pick? Are you thinking Kellen Mond? Again, in the 4th round, a lot of this has to do with best player available, if there's somebody that stands out, or possibly trying to fill a need with a sneaky play. If your quarterback situation is, I have Deshaun Watson, well, Matt, you probably would have taken in the 3rd round Davis Mills.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't have gambled that he fell to the 4th. But now you're in a situation with Kellen Mond. If you have Kirk Cousins as your second quarterback on your team, would you even bother taking Kellen Mond? And if you're starting Kirk Cousins, you're probably not a very good team.
Yeah. If you're starting him in a single quarterback, no, you're not that good. I'm going to take another play that you are not that fond of. I trust Sean McVay. He traded up to get him. I'll go with Tutu Atwell.
Tavon Austin 2.0 is here.
He's got a plan. And it's 4.4.
50 targets a game.
If it doesn't work out, 4.4 is not a ton of.
No, not at all. So, I mean, if you're picking for the huge upside there, then there's nothing wrong with any fourth-round pick, even if it's one of these two guys, the tight end. So there goes Kellen Mond, which, again, fine at that spot. All right, so once again, we're running into the same issue where Sleeper likes to go way off the board and pick players who, if you're thinking this is Jordan Love, you're incorrect.
Yeah.
This is Josh Love, who was cut loose by the Rams 9 months ago and doesn't have a team.
Jordan Love would be a really good pick here.
Very good pick there. That'd be some great value. If he's somehow available in your league, probably should have taken him in the third, if not second, I mean, at this point with the Rodgers situation. But let's move on from that.
He would be in that next,
I've heard some hype about this tight end with the landing spot in Indianapolis, how they use the tight ends, but they do have a couple players there, so not overly excited. But, I mean, in time, it could pan out, and this could be one of the better fourth-round picks, especially better than that Atwell pick. Now it's my turn to pick. Who do you think I'm going with, Matt?
Oh.
I do like Marquez Stevenson, but I do believe I can get him as a UDFA.
I was going to say maybe him, but I will predict that you will go to I'll say you'll go with Elijah Mitchell.
Ooh. That would be basically the best player on my board.
I know you well, I guess.
I will take a running back who has the chance to be the lead back in San Francisco. I know a lot of people don't like him, but they make fantasy points out of running backs who people don't like. So I will take him happily. Another tight end going here. So really going heavy on the tight ends. This is probably too many tight ends for one of the drafts with the ability of these tight ends this year. If your draft looks like this, it just means that good wide receivers and other players are falling.
The thing that I am noticing is the teams that have taken tight ends this round have got one quarterback, one tight end, one running back, and one wide receiver. Maybe these people like to split it up like that. I don't know.
Could be. And again, it happens. So this should be a quarterback.
Yeah.
And it is. And this should be a tight end to close it off. And it was. So the Sleeper app liking to split it up and get one of each position, even though we said this was basically a straight flex where you can pick any player you wanted. That's going to wrap it up for the draft. Matt, looking at these teams other than yours and mine, do you see any other decent teams that were able to be drafted here?
Yeah, even team one up to the Tommy Tremble. I like that, what they did there.
I like 3. I'm not going to lie. I like 3.
Yep, 3 is good as well.
I think most teams did a lot better than our last draft. Yes, they forced a tight end in the 4th round on more than half the picks and a quarterback on the other ones. We're the only ones who didn't take a tight end or quarterback in the last round. I mean, getting Kellen Mond isn't bad. I don't mind. Actually, I don't really like Team 7 because they reach for every single one of their picks.
Right. Yeah. No, that's that. Yeah. I don't care for that one. I mean, depending on what you need, if you need a quarterback, like I don't mind team 2. I like Chase and Hubbard. But
I mean, like you said, 1 looks really good too.
Yeah. I really like number 1's top 3 picks. Yeah.
Anyways, that's gonna wrap it up. Matt.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hopefully you did both.
That's it.